Hey, hello. Welcome back to this Global Hack Week Season Lounge. I'm very happy to be here to this JavaScript Universe Part 1. So, first of all, I haven't seen any comment yet, so I'm guessing as many of you are new or not used to comment. But I encourage you to do so we can stay communicate. Yeah, exactly, like circling, saying hello here. So really nice to have you, all of you. Um, you may be wondering, oh wait, more comments. I like this. Thank you. As Am says, hello. The Umbit7, hello all. Hey, I recognize this name, Sparky Circuit Student. Hey, Alberto. Hey, Smith first. Hey, everyone. Ocean. Hey, hello. Yeah. So, what are we learning today? Nice question. Um, as the name says, JavaScript it's a complete universe of knowledge, and being one of the languages that I, for say so, it's my favorite language. It's not a lie, and I found this language very interesting. I will say the second one that I found very interesting would be C, but for just all the history, and the third place will be to Python because it's very popular now. But let me know. Let me know what's your favorite language, what you develop, and well, uh, I once heard this joke that says, "Don't fight about what language is best. Just take the language for its purpose. For example, if you want to do web, you do JavaScript. If you want to do data analysis, you do JavaScript. If you want to do machine learning, you do JavaScript. If you want to do mobile, do JavaScript, etc. But that's just a joke because, yeah, the truth is that JavaScript can help you do many things. But there are other languages that are more, for say, with a more focused purpose. For example, returning to the mobile example, if you want to do mobile for iOS, yeah, you can do it with JavaScript, but there's Swift, right, which is the native language. So you understand the joke here, right? Hello, everyone. It's my first day here. Thanks for having me. No, it's a pleasure to have you here, and welcome to this season lounge, Global Hack Week. This is an event that we throw every month here on the Majorly Hacking, and the intention for this is to teach you something or to have a great time. For example, with the mini events. Plus, if you do the challenges and etc., you can win community points. Do we need anything installed? Yeah, I recommend you to go to install Node if you don't have it right now. But don't worry if you don't have the Node installed yet. I can teach you a way to run JavaScript on the browser because all browsers run JavaScript. It's the intention for that. What is the universe refers to? Yeah, yes. Um, Sorry, I was just checking because you write universo, and that's the Spanish word for that. And well, fun fact, if you didn't know that, I'm from Mexico, so my language is in Spanish. So for a second, I thought that I just miswrite that, but no, I write universe. Um, what have to do? Well, I'm going to explain that in a second because I wanted to give this series of um, workshops to explain my process of learning this language. In this session in particular, I am going to talk about the language, what's the origin, what it's useful for, everything. A little spoiler on that, um, the basics on the variables, the operators, etc. Like really, really basic on that on the language. But the plus here and the reason for you to stay if you're already familiar with JavaScript, it's the mental model. And again, on my own personal way of learning the language, I discovered two two sources that really helped me. The first one is the book Eloquent JavaScript. Don't worry, I am going to mention this again and share the links. Um, and the second one, it's um, how to say, like a series of mails that now it's a course, of course, written by Dan Abramov, which is, from what I understand, like co-founder or something like that of Redux. Um, but the guy is just a genius, and he do an amazing thing that is sharing his mental model of JavaScript. And what a mental model is, for example, and the way he explained it in this series of mails, if you see a snippet of code, just let A equal 10, let B equal A, and then A equal 0. And I ask you, what is the value when after you run this snippet of the A and B variables? Well, you have to think I assign 10 to A, then I assign the value storage in A to B, and then I reassign the value of A to 0. But that doesn't mean that A changes its value. So, sorry, that B changes its value. So A is 0, but B is still 10, right? Well, that doesn't always, it's like that. And in JavaScript, um, well, in JavaScript, that's true, but there are other languages that works differently. And for example, having this pointer to a variable always keeps the reference. So if you change a thing in the reference value, you change the value of all its dependent variables. So that's a mental model, the way on how you start thinking of what is happening in the code before even run it, the way of saying, hey, I'm going to do this and then this, and I'm going to write this variable and assign it and perform this operation and call this function, call this method, etc., etc., etc. That's the mental model. And why universe then? Because in this mental model, we can think of our code as a little planet. And again, Dan Abramov is a very genius. So, have you read? Sorry for the noise. Have you read The Little Prince? Or I don't know if that's the accurate translation in English. I'm talking the Principito, which is a tale for kids. I really love that book. And well, in this book, there's a kid that lives in a planet, and it has a fox friend, and it falls in love with a rose. It's kind of weird, but it really deserves to be read. So if you haven't, go to check that the Little Prince. But the metaphor here is that same as in the Little Prince, our code is the planet, and we have to explore what's outside the planet. And maybe we can write some things inside our little planet, but we need to take things from the universe, because in the JavaScript universe there are functions and there are objects mainly, and above that there are primitive values. And if you haven't heard of this and you call yourselves JavaScript developers, you are not wrong, but you may be missing something very important that can change the way of you use the language. And if you don't call yourself JavaScript developers, but you want to learn and you want to start being JavaScript developers, then this is going to be a great start for that. Hello from BK24. And Sparky Circuit students is Hayes too. So that said, let me start preparing something to share. First of all, this amazing page I was referring to, which is the book. You can check it online completely free, and it's fine. And you can purchase the physical book if you want. That will be another thing. The name of this book is Eloquent JavaScript, which is great. I learned JavaScript with this. And the second I'm going to share, it's the one I was talking about of Dan Abramov, which is just JavaScript. And I found this just a very great name, because I don't know. I think in this course this is not free. I have to make the how to say the I have to tell the bad news here. This is not a free course, but I think it how to say it pays for itself. But if you don't want to take it, it's completely fine. I'm going to explain the mental model and the JavaScript universe as good as I can during this series. But there's a reference if you want to check it out too. What else I wanted to share? Oh, another thing is that, like that, if you want to be very specific, JavaScript, it is not. Oh, you just shared to us another JavaScript.info. I haven't checked that. I think let me check. JavaScript.info. The model JavaScript tutorial, the modern JavaScript tutorial. This is an EPUB. Okay, it's a book. I think I think seems nice. Seems nice. The JavaScript language, the browser, and additional articles. Okay, nah, it looks good. It looks very good about the contents. Thanks for sharing. Um, and yeah, I was mentioning another thing that yeah, sorry, I forgot about the history and the language itself. For what I understand, at the early stage of web browsers, this common says that there was a war between browsers, and well, we all know what happened with Internet Explorer and etc. The point is that many browsers were using different languages, and the way you developed a web page from one um, had differences between how you develop the web page for another one. So there's a timeline when if you well let me try to sorry again for the motorcycle noise. Let me try to find the timeline I'm referring. Maybe uh, uh, no JavaScript. Maybe if I Google like timeline, like just like that. I'm going to share my screen to make this more interactive because I know it's not like a very fun thing to just have my face here. I just wanted to take full space to talk with you a little bit about why I really love this language. Um, to be honest, I see a trend some years ago about people posting thank you JavaScript or thank you Python or thank you the language that you prefer. And then, for example, a guy that bought his own house or some people posting a card or I don't know, maybe vacations or whatever. The point is like I don't know. In that moment, I was kind of not being part of that, but now I really, really, I really feel like that. Like I really feel that I own the the language a lot. You just exactly you just with me that thought about I usually use MD Mozilla developer and what's MDM stands for I never remember. Well, the Mozilla documentation uh, for JavaScript, but I was going to explain that JavaScript indeed it's not a language, it's the interpretation of the language. It's kind of hard, because yeah, it's a language. We all know, we all can say it's a language, but if you want to get picky, if you want to be very, very technical, it's not a language. It's the interpretation of the standard that it's ECMAScript, um, for the ECMA Foundation and etc. Same like sorry about the motorcycle noises. They just decided they wanted to make noise for these two. Um, but yeah, technically, if you take that interpretation, the ECMA one, and you can make another language. So, uh, and just like that, the best documentation I ever found it's the Mozilla Developer Network one, the Mozilla Docs. So thank you, Sparky Stupid Student, for that. And now let me start sharing my screen. As nice as it is, the JavaScript background for my computer, and we look for this JavaScript timeline. Um, no, this is more like JavaScript history timeline. History of JavaScript or timeline. History timelines. Wow. Oh, the Web Treat School has a page dedicated for JavaScript history. That should be cool. Okay, nice. JavaScript was invented by Brendan Eich in 1995. It was developed for the Netscape 2 and it became the ECMA standard in 1997. Remember, we have versions of this ECMA script until they, at some point, I think it was on 2015. Um, yeah, no. Hmm. Well, I remember that it was on 2015. Yeah, exactly. It was in 2015 when they decided they are they weren't going to call the ECMA versions, which are versions of JavaScript, anymore with one, two, three, four, five, or following the number, but for the year because they, well, at the beginning. They were released many years with difference, except for the first two. Uh, but for example, the first one was 1997, the second one 1998, then until 99. Um, then it happened 8 years of, well, a lot of things happened between this change. Then ECMAScript 5, then ECMAScript 6 in 1915, and they decided they were going to call it by the year. So we have ECMAScript versions 2022, 2023, 2024, etc. But this just describes the versions of JavaScript. I wanted to talk a little bit more about what happened before, because not all the time JavaScript was called JavaScript. Well, this was short. Brendan A created the Netscape era, the shadow down of Internet Explorer versus Mozilla Firefox. Well, when who guess I'm using Mozilla. Uh, that I the Netscape died and Google Chrome was born. SMGS2 WebAssembly on 2014. The rise of Node.js. Whew. Well, this is another really interesting topic, but we're going to talk about that in a second. They didn't mention this in any place, but I remember for investigation I did some years ago, and this is not the first time I'm talking about JavaScript. If I remember well, because it's been a while since I give a session like this, the how to say it, the previous version of JavaScript was called Mocha or something like that, sounding like coffee, or and it should be Destiny because I really like coffee too. No, no, there's this is an something new. Mochas, mocha, js.org. No, this is for testing. Well, it does not matter too much. The point is, JavaScript. It has history. It was born on the world of the browsers. Um, Thankfully, the people decided there were going to be a standard Mocha LiveScript. Yeah, you remember that too, right? I was kind of afraid that, yeah. Let me search for that because I was kind of afraid that I was living in a Mandela effect or something like that. Well, internet's no, yeah, right now. Yeah, Mocha, LiveScript, and then JavaScript. Hmm. If you have a web site dysfunctional, it's probably safely tuned, and you have definitely put JavaScript in quite a few times. JavaScript language, working related language. Brendan 8 of Netscape and later the Mozilla organization was the original developer of what was born by as Mocha, then renamed to LiveScript, and it finally became known and as JavaScript. Uh, People frequently ask me because I know it's kind of confusing at first. Why JavaScript? And is JavaScript the same as Java? And I have to explain, no, it is not. And I have to admit that now JavaScript doesn't seem like a very good name to me. Even though I love JavaScript, I think the name is terrible. And I understand that the name was given by the fact that Java in the moment was very popular. And looking for, how to say it, adoption of the language, well, they decided to call the language JavaScript, to make this like sound like Java and like that. The languages are very different, and they I don't know. I just don't like the name because of this reason. But thank you, Dev Nelson, for the help. Again, I was kind of feeling like I was just making that up, but no. Here's the fact. Um, and well, I'm talking about the versions of this and how now they are called ECMAScript versions. ECMAScript is the standard that gives JavaScript the reason, the best documentation I ever found. Returning to what Sparky Circuit student told us, it's the Mozilla one. So MDN JavaScript, it's the best you can look. So here you will find all you need to know about the language. Let's break down what this says. JavaScript, oh, okay, let me put this in English. JavaScript is a lightweight interpreted or just in time compiled. Um, that's very funny, and we're going to cover that difference about the interpreted language and the just in time compiled um, in the part 3 of this series. But think of this: an interpreted language, it's the runtime takes line by line reading it and interpreting it, so it throws you in time in real time the errors. So when it is a non-stop error, it just shows you the errors or throws the errors on the output, but it can still operate and keeps running the script. Compiled language, it's the one that before even runs, it tells you, for example, C. there's a type error here, or you're missing a semicolon, or you're missing this, or you have an error this. I won't even run until you fix this. That's the main differences for an interpreted one and a compiled one. And this specifically, JavaScript, it's just in time because it tries to get advantages of both worlds. And for example, here I see the question about what you think of TypeScript that Microsoft is trying to push. I've heard it's like an extension of JavaScript. Well, I do Angular for my work, and if you didn't know, Angular works with TypeScript. One step, uh, one step before that, it's that JavaScript. It's a loose typed how to say loose type language. That means that we don't have to type every variable we use. We can take a variable and assign it to a number, or assign it to a string, or assign it to an object, or assign it to whatever we want, and then reassign it to another thing. In JavaScript, we can do things like add a number to a string and vice versa. I think that's really, really cool because it allows you to do many things. People, um, mostly people that came from strongly typed languages, don't like this because they say it helps you, well, not helps you, but it doesn't prevent you to perform unnecessary or operations that you don't want. Because again, think of this like if you want to do an addition or a multiplication of a string for a number, that may be a thing you want to do, maybe. And JavaScript can, because JavaScript has a thing that it's the type coercion. So JavaScript, it's very intelligent enough to say, maybe what you want to do is to me to translate this string. For example, let's think it's a tree in a string, and multiply it for another tree that it's a number, and I can do it. Maybe if it is something that I cannot translate from a string, for example, a hello world, but you want me to multiply it for a number, I'm going to multiply or repeat the string three times, and it has many useful applications. Um, if you think, if you have your mental model of JavaScript right, but let's think that you don't and you're new to the language, that can be dangerous. And now you can do things that it doesn't throw an error because it is not an error, but it is not what you wish to do. You get me, right? Um, so what I think about TypeScript, which is not an extension of JS, indeed, some people call them its own language. And at first I was like, no, that's not another language, just a layer of JavaScript. But remember what we were talking at the beginning. JavaScript, it's an interpretation of ECMAScript. So if Microsoft wants to interpretate this with a stronger type, that's totally fine, and that's TypeScript. So that make it its own language, which is exactly copy of JavaScript, but having the a more strong typed. That means you have to specify if something is a number, or if something it's an object, or if something it's a string, or if something it's and you can create your own types. You can create enums. You can create another things. And in my day, day by day, I use TypeScript, and I think TypeScript it's really really great. In my opinion, it has many good things, and the good thing about TypeScript too, it's I know it's not a very good practice, but you can say type anything and take that and even say trust me, this will be, and specify the type with a sentence that is as, for example. So you have the strong types when you want it, and the loose types when you need it, for example. Um, so yeah, my opinion on that, it's that TypeScript it's really cool. And don't worry, for example, like saying, hey, why I care about learning the JavaScript, so if TypeScript it's better. Remember, they are the same languages, they are the same interpretations of the language. The only thing that changes is that in JavaScript you don't have to specify types, and in TypeScript you um, do have in between quotes. Um, and talking about the names, I don't know. I prefer TypeScript. It's more funny and even makes sense that JavaScript. That Java doesn't make sense. Java. Why you call it Java? Uh, but yeah, that's my opinion on that. Thank you for asking. I'm sorry, I don't know how to read your name, but really great question. Um, I take advantage of the question to explain about this interpreting a compiled programming language. While it's most a script language for web pages, many web environments also use it, such as Node. And this is another great thing to talk about, because Node, it's the reason why JavaScript, well, in my opinion, Node is the reason why JavaScript is so powerful right now. And it in the history, in the timeline, it was a breakpoint, because before Node, the only environment capable of running the JavaScript was the web browsers. Node, it is the runtime environment for JavaScript that allows you to run JavaScript not only in the web browsers, but everywhere, in mobiles, in the computer. Uh, I even heard of IoT running JavaScript thanks to this amazing thing. And what it do, it's take the JavaScript engine and take it and put it everywhere. I think I don't want to lie, but I think they use now B8, which is the engine for JavaScript more popular, and even before uh, some years, the different browsers use different engines. For example, Mozilla used to have SpiderMonkey, but for what I know, they changed it to B8, and B8 was firstly used in Chrome, I think. But well, at some point they have to recognize that JavaScript, I mean, sorry, B8 was far better. Do I have this right? JavaScript is loose type, and TypeScript is strongly type. Yeah, exactly. You had it right. What it's loosely typed and strongly typed. Okay, don't worry. I will explain that with an example. But first, I need to explain more things in order to this make sense. But in common sense, let's think of any other language has, for example, in general, strings which are called strings because there are a sequence of characters, numbers. Maybe some languages have different numbers, for example, integer, floating numbers, integer 32, integer 16, integer 8, double, etc. This is not for JavaScript, I want to clarify, but I'm thinking about generally in languages. What else we can have? Well, think of that examples. And in some of these languages, you have to specify when you create a variable, what type is that variable, right? You want a variable to be integer 8. Okay, then you can't say after that, or you can't assign a floating number. Or if you specify something, it's a character, then you can assign a string, and so on and so on and so on, right? Well, in JavaScript, you don't have to specify nothing, nothing at all. There are certain types of values in JavaScript that now we can call primitive values, and we are going to be there in a second. Um, Numbers, strings, objects, etc. Um, but when you create a variable, you don't have to say that it's from a specific type. You just create it, you assign it, you can reassign it to another type if you want. That's fine. For JavaScript, that's completely fine. For Python, it's the same, for example. And here in TypeScript, you can, you don't need to, but you can specify uh, a type for a variable, a type for a function to return, a type for a function to receive an argument. You can specify a class. You can create structures, define schemas. You can do those kind of things. Can And so that's a strongly typed language. That's the difference, and I hope that explains it. Let me take some water. This point, how you doing? You're taking that inside your mind. You're creating your mental model. We do need to cover that in a second, and well, that will be another thing. um, I have prepared another thing around here. Give me a second. Mm, okay. um, Got it, sir. Cool. Okay, thank you. So, next thing, we were talking about where you can run JavaScript. We were talking about Node, that it's the runtime that takes the JavaScript engine, etc., etc., etc. And someone asked me before if you needed to have something installed, and I recommend you to have Node install. But let's do another thing at the moment. That the browser have a console, right? And we as developers know we can access it, uh, inspecting the page, and here it is, right? So we have the inspector of what HTML we have here, the console, the debugger, etc., right? The network, blah blah blah. Well, we are going to take use of the console. Here, we can write JavaScript code. How does JavaScript code looks like? Well, it depends of the ECMAScript version we are referring. But for declaring variables, which is like the very basic of every language, we can do three things mainly. One of them it's almost deprecated, but well, um, that's another an interesting part of the talk, and maybe tomorrow we can cover it in part two about how we can sorry, how we can decide which ECMAScript version we are doing, because yeah, having the latest every time sounds cool, and we have the advantage of having the newest features and the newest things in the language and etc. But some browsers doesn't support them yet. Some browsers need another ECMAScript specification. Um, some libraries, for example, it depends on which version of a framework you'll be using. Lord, there are a lot of things to have in mind when you do JavaScript for big projects or for production and massively. If you just want a script for your computer or personal project, maybe it doesn't matter. But we have like compilers or builders, let's say, that takes a code for one version and translate it to the previous one, or well, mainly it's that. um, and that's for having the compatibility, right? Because um, if you support a newer, obviously you can support the previous. But if you just support, let's say, until the 2018 version of ECMAScript, but you write your code with some new features of the 2022 one, well, you need to translate it to the supported version of ECMAScript. A lot. But let's pause down and let's say again, there are three ways. The deprecated, or the mostly deprecated one, which is using var, the name of your variable, let's say my my JavaScript variable equal and the value. And remember, in the browser we use JavaScript. Uh, that's another thing. If you do JavaScript, sorry, TypeScript, you have to transpile it to TypeScript to JavaScript in order to the browser to understand it. Because let's say we write a sentence in TypeScript that says this is a number. The browser will don't understand this because they just know JavaScript, not TypeScript. Well, now you need to translate it to JavaScript. The TypeScript thing, it's just for you as how to say it, as developer. It helps you to doesn't commit that mistakes on on the on the process of writing the code and to receive the values of things that you expected, blah 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 blah. But at the end, the machine don't care about that. And once the code is great and once it works as it's supposed to, it can be translated to JavaScript. And well, the browser indeed it's going to take that JavaScript code and turn it into machine code via the engine and blah 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 blah, right? But just a thought on the TypeScript thing. But let's say we assign this to 10, which is a value, right? Many languages have these numeric values, and again we were talking about some of them having different types of numeric values. For example, number sorry, there's a string, integer, float. Sorry, string. Sorry. I confused myself. Um, String, integer, different types of. Again, the string. I don't know why I'm saying string. Integer, and float, and different types of integers and floats, doubles, etc. Well, JavaScript only has number, right? That's a primitive value. Don't worry about anything else, except that in newer versions of the ECMAScript, um, they added something called big num, which is intended for having very big numbers in order for JavaScript to perform good, because they used to have a lack of performance there, because having them stored in how to say it, in a memory that they were missing parts of the number. Just saying that. But the beautiful people of the ECMAScript Foundation fixed it, and now we have big numbers. And again, if you don't use strong types, you don't have to worry even about that. But think of this as just number, and we hit enter, and then we have my JavaScript variable created. The output of this sentence, it's nothing, so that's why we receive undefined. But if we run my JavaScript variable, the output of this variable it's 10. So we have 10 here. Can you make that a little bit bigger in the code box? Yeah, sorry. Now let me make this bigger. Nice. I hope that's much better. Do IDEs for TypeScript not do that for you automatically? Um, no. No. I want you to not lose. Sorry, I want you to understand what's happening in an IDE. IDE helps you to write the code. It even has debugging tools. Some of them, well, actually, what makes them IDEs and had the difference from a text editor, for example, it's that in the IDEs you can run. They have runtimes, right? You can compile or interpret your code inside the text editor. That's why they are IDEs. For example, Visual Studio Code, it is not an IDE. Visual Studio Code, it's a text editor. Visual Studio without the code, the other one, the purple one, the one that many of you don't even use, that's an IDE. That's tricky though, because there are plugins for Visual Studio Code that turns the text editor into an IDE, because now you have the run option now, for example. Um, but no. I think this question it's for the thing I was mentioning about having to translate the TypeScript code into JavaScript code in order to run it on the browsers. And the way you do that, it's using Babel, for example, or Gulp, or any other. I don't remember the word for this, but there are like these transpilers, right? These compilers, these interpreters, these the way you configure your project to work like this. Um, so maybe an IDE can run your TypeScript code, but they don't do that automatically for you to take a, a build folder or a distribution folder or these names and take it to the web browser. So I hope that's clear now. Uh, nice, thank you. Where I was. Oh yeah, the variables and stuff, right? So we have the values of the numbers here, And I have something prepared for creating this. Yeah, let's talk about the primitive values. So, what a primitive value is, and what does that have to do with our universe? Remember, and now put attention here on my camera. We have our code, which is our small planet, and above that, in all the universe of JavaScript, there are primitive values, and these primitive values doesn't change. Imagine being a step on our cold planet and look through a telescope and point to another planet, another star, another body in the sky, in the universe that exists already in the JavaScript universe, that is a 10. 10, it's part already for the JavaScript universe, and you can change it. You can do here now, put attention in code, 10 equals 11. You can do that. You may be wondering why. Well, we are going to explain that in a second about the primitive values. But these primitive values are objects. Everything in JavaScript are objects. And this is the truly reveal of the class. JavaScript already exists out there. Sorry, the 10 already exists out there. 11 already exists out there. My code, our code, it's the my JavaScript variable part. And I can use my code and reassign it to 11, for example. Now, if I ask again what's the value of my JavaScript variable, again, it's 11, and it will still be. Because now we are pointing or we are joining them with an interstellar bridge from our code, our planet, to the planet 11. Before it was joined to the planet 10, right? But remember, out there, the primitive values already exist. Which are these primitive values? Oh, and before we continue, this has a name, and that's immutable, right? What are these primitive values? There are numbers, strings. What do I mean with that? Example here, my JavaScript variable can be also, and JavaScript, you can do a double quote or a single quote, it doesn't matter. And string is this. And so my JavaScript value now has this value. A string is this. Boolean, JavaScript value can be true. JavaScript value can be false. Well, um, let me, sorry, check my appointment here. Okay. Um, I needed to check something before I continue. I don't lie to you, because there are two that I don't remember well if there were primitive values. Things. And taking advantage of this, I'm going to share with you another great resource in your JavaScript learning path. That it's a repository called, um, if I remember well, because I'm not finding it. It's on GitHub, and you can look for it as 30 33 things every JavaScript developer should know. Hmm. Let me look for it in my start repositories. Your stars is not listed. Maybe they remove it. Wow, no, no. It was a great repository. Why that happened? Okay, okay. It doesn't matter. We were prepared for this. Hmm. No, I found it. Sorry, I really was afraid that it was removed, but no. Here's the link. And the title it's 33 JS concepts, but I was looking for a phrase like 33 things that every JavaScript developer should know. And well, here's the yeah 32 concepts every JavaScript developer should know. Mm. The great thing about this is that they not only tells you what you should know, but great, great resources for learning that. So call stack, it's the first, and I don't know if they how they sort this, but some of them are really complex to explain. Some of them really needs more than just a quick read or a quick explanation to understand. One of them, no, for example, here the difference between comparison and a triple comparison, it's just that the first checks the value, and the second one, this with three, checks not only value but type, and that's the main difference. Sorry, that's the only difference. And you know that in 5 seconds I explained this fifth concept. But explaining the call tag, it's going to take us at least half of the part three or part four. I'm not sure yet. It depends on the speed or how we are doing this. But let's take a look to the primitive models references. Um, and take a look for one of these resources. And we were mentioning two of these, three of these: numbers, strings, booleans, Mhm. They talk about computer memory, blah blah blah. Declaration, we were talking about bar, which is now deprecated again. Not fully, but I recommend you to not use bar. And the second one is let, and the third one is const. The thing with const is that you cannot change um, the value. You cannot reassign the const. That's why they are called const, right? And you may be wondering, Alberto, is there no difference between bar and let? No, actually there is, and the big difference is that JavaScript variables declared with var are have hoisting. What does that mean? Hoisting means that it takes this piece of for example, if you write in the normal code, name equals this, but you didn't declare name first with let or with bar, that will be an error. No, sorry, I'm totally lying. No, yeah. No, 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 I was not lying. Sorry. Yeah, that will be an error. But in a script that you later use with bar, um, what is JJ's loop? Since you can change it. Sorry, I didn't understand your question about since you can't change it. Oh, sorry, I didn't look this. What if JJ's is loosely typed? How do you control what type a const end up as? Um, how do you control what type a const end up as? Well, the const will end up completely with the same value it was declared. It doesn't change. That's why it is called the const. Hope that solves the question. If don't, please help me being like rephrase it so I can understand it. There are literals here. Um, Sorry, I don't understand this. But yeah, returning to the hoisting thing. Um, Hoist means that it elevates. It literally it's taken from the original line it was declared and put it on the very top of the code. So again, returning to the example, if you say name equals 10, for example, or name equals Alberto, but you didn't declare variable or let name first, it will be an error. But with hoisting, you can declare it after you use it. So that's funny. Um, and in interpreted languages, it's get more funnier because you may be thinking how even that's possible. If you say before that it takes line by line the in time compiler, sorry, the interpreter, and executes the lines, right? So how, if he hasn't reached, well, sorry, if it hasn't reached a line, how will it know that it was declared after that? Well, that's the in time compiler. So the tricky thing here and with hoisting is that these values go really to the top and then everything else. So that's tricky. And again, that could be a very great thing. That could be amazing. That could be one of the very, very perks of JavaScript. And why this is almost deprecated is that sometimes it can behave not as you wanted or not as you planned it. And again, I think many of the changes of JavaScript are are for good. For example, if you think of these differences and you know what happens when you use variable instead of let, that could be a perk again. And I think that's the reason that why they are not removing these from JavaScript. They added let and they added const because that's why people wanted. That's why people wanted. They wanted variables that can be strict in not changing its values. They wanted variables that didn't perform this hoisting, but that doesn't mean that variables are in disuse, in deprecation. Sorry, I mean it, and I say it because I tend to see more and more people not using it because of they don't know the real difference and they don't know what's happening there. And since the hoisting that can produce unnecessary or unwanted functions, and again, that's not JavaScript faults, that's developers faults because they don't understand fully the language and what's happening here. Um, well, I mean, as in JavaScript uses values library, right? Like you can do a math with strings and such. I assume JS converts strings to numbers, then does math, but consts are immutable. So, would you be able to do something like that? Yeah. The question here, the answer here is no, because once you assign a value to a const, it will never change, and just like that, it will never change. Uh, okay, nice. Naming variables, JavaScript variable name rules. Where is the thing about cleaning? No. Accessing JavaScript variables? No. Basic usage? No. Why should we use variable? Well, I didn't find this that useful. Let's hope Git for Geeks has a better explanation about primitive numbers. Sorry, primitive types. Okay, yeah, number, we already covered that. String, we already covered that. Yeah, this is the one I wasn't sure, to be honest. Undefined. Remember, we were defining these and the output was undefined? Well, we actually never use undefined as a value, us as developers. But undefined, it's in practice a very practical way of JavaScript to tell us that maybe there's not output. And talking about type coercions, undefined can be used as a false value. For example, let's say we ask one, it's sorry, trouble. What I'm doing here is just asking for the if the value inside the brackets it's a truthy value or a false value. Empty strings are false values, even with double quotes or single quotes. Strings No matter what it content is, even a space string are truth values. Every string, numbers including sorry, except for zero, are truth values. So one minus one, two minus two, every number except for zero are truth values. Zero is false. Undefined, it's a false value. And again, we can my JavaScript variable assign undefined, but in practice, we try to leave undefined to JavaScript as language, right? So a process can return this undefined. But if we want to declare something as null, but not a value, not a zero, not an empty string, and something that says this doesn't work like it should, we mostly use null, right? And probably we can see this. Undefined, this means that the variable has been declared, but it has not been assigned to a variable, or it has been explicitly set to be valuable undefined. When we just declare a variable, sorry, I forgot to mention that, and thanks here. Uh, it has undefined because it's not defined. It makes sense, right? The Boolean, we will talk about this. The null, this type can be hold only one possible, and that's null. Um, so null, null, no, not existing, right? And we can assign it. The one I was talking about to have good performance with doing big numbers operations. The only difference and how we declare this, it's with an n at the end. Can represent numbers greater than that and this amount, which helps to perform operations for larger numbers. Blah blah blah. The only one, its symbol. This one I have to be honest, I don't fully get it, and that's why I always forget it. Um, but I would like to explore more of this. Just take in mind that it is a primitive value, right? And remember what I said before: all primitive values exist out there in the JavaScript universe, and there are two non-primitive values that I mentioned before that are everything in the JavaScript universe. And those are objects and functions. The object, it's an, well, here explains a Java entity that represents a has property and methods, right? And the other, for example, an array, I don't know um, why they separate it here, but an array, it's an object. Difference, primitive, and they don't mention here the functions. Well, it doesn't matter. Let's check this different difference between primitive are predefined certain values. So it depends on the data structure. We can no, well, not that mentioned here, but ones are mutable and the others are unmutable. We can change arrays, for example, because once we create an array, and for those one that are not familiar with what an array is, in JavaScript we declare them with square brackets, and for example, an array of ones, right? And we can change this to be um, well, a way we can manipulate arrays in JavaScript. That will be for tomorrow's sessions. Um, Methods on objects. It's, for example, pop. it returns us the last element of the array, but of the original, if you check, the length changed because it removed the last element of the array. It was returned for the function. That's why we have the output here as one. But now it doesn't belong here. But this doesn't mean, again, mental model of the universe. That's why this session is called JavaScript universe. Tell us that we have an array that it's living on our code, on our piece of code, that it's pointing 6 times before seven to the same element, to the same planet. And we can access, for example, the first element of this and change it to three. This doesn't mean that now that now the one value has a three or means three. No, no, no. It just means that the first element of our array is now pointing. It's looking with the telescope. It's joined by the bridge or whatever in your model mental model works to a tree. So now the array looks like this. The first element points to the tree planet, and the rest still points to the one number, sorry, number one um, planet. And that says so. Now we can talk about more this mental model, right? There's a paradox um, of for example what that Abramov mentions, that is coding slow versus coding fast. And how to say, it doesn't necessarily mean that coding fast is good or coding slow is bad. Sometimes we need time to understand what we are fully doing. And again, having this ability of writing code and not necessarily need to run it, to know what the values has, what the value of a variable is in a specific point. Let's say with a more complex example, and I'm going to talk about the structures and operations and methods and arrays and everything tomorrow. But at the moment, I want you to have this mental model, this JavaScript introduction, and etc. But say if or while um, one, sorry, first I will need to declare let one equal 10. Oh, sorry, I I equal 10, and while I it's different than 0 or bigger than 0, um, my JavaScript variable I will be I times 5, and every time I'm going to add I minus 1 and console dot log the value of my bar is, and then my JavaScript variable I, right? So the mental model, to go further in this explanation, is having the ability, and again, this may look like a complex example for some people that are not used to the language. For other ones, can say like, hey, that's really simple. I know that you are iterating or in a loop that will just decrease the value of um, sorry, how to say it, a variable you defined before that has a 10 value. So this will execute how many times, and how to know how many times will be the mental model, the first step of the mental model. Well, I know I value it's 10, so while I it's bigger than 0, that will be executed the first time I has the value of 10. The next in the first line, I decrease the value of I minus 1, so next time will be 9. This will be executed one time. 8, 2, 7, 3, 6, 4, 5, 5 times. 4, 5, yeah, 5, 4, 6 times. 3, 7 times. 2, 8 times. 1, 9 times. And in the next will be value of 0. So no execution. Then if I add here equal, then it will be an execution, and that will be the whole 10 times. And what will be the value of the variable, my JavaScript variable, every time it runs? Well, the first time it runs at the position 10, I the value of that position will be 10 times 5, 50. So I know at this point it will be 50. Then for 9, it will be 45. Then 40, then 35, then 30, then and so on and so on. Again, this simple example, this simple exercise for someone, or this complex for some others, it's the mental model. And this is not only helpful for JavaScript, this is helpful for every language and every programming thing that you do. Hmm. Actually, I always says, sorry, I always say that knowing to having the ability to program, it's not knowing the syntax of a language. If you know how to program, you can do it with every language you want. It doesn't matter if you don't know the syntax, you always can Google things, right? But I can do a hello world, or a algorithm more complex with a programming language that I don't even know. Like, for example, R. I don't know anything about R, but I know how to program, so I can start googling things. Start can googling how declare a variable in R, how to perform multiplication. I don't know this type of operations, right? Um, Having the ability of creating algorithms in your mind and process them in a mental model and put them in code once you know the syntax of the language you're using, that's programming. Um, so let's run this. And I have an error. You remember? I was while I was explaining, I tell you that at this point I was going to be 10. And that was completely wrong because at first I was 10, yes. But now at this line, it was reduced to 9. So 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 0. And why we have a minus 5? Well, because when this value was 0, then this was minus 1, right? But that's maybe not what we want. And well, I thought it was right at first because I didn't have the time. Well, I didn't take the time on purpose here to fully understand the mental model. Let's do it again and go step by step for having this. If I want this to be starting on 50 and ending on, let's not say 0 here, on and ending on 5, the first thing I need to do that for ending on 5, it's removing the equal, right? Because I want this to be 1 times 5 ending in 5. The second thing I need to do is remove this here. I'm putting it here. I, it's going to be minus equal 1. Now, we will start with I equal 10. The condition to this cycle to happen is that I, it's bigger than 0. 10, it's bigger than 0. Yeah, so my JavaScript variable on position I, that in this first run it's 10, will be 10 times 50 times 5, that's 50. We will display that value and then we were going to reduce that value. So next time is 9. Is 9 bigger than 0? Yeah, so 9 equals 1. Sorry, 9 positions equals 9 to 5, 45. Then 8 bigger than 0, yeah, position 8, 8 times 5, 40. Yeah, that works and will work until we reach the last call on 2. When we are on 1, this will be on 1 position equals 1 times 5. Yeah, that means the position 1 will be on a on value 5, but then this will be 0 and the condition is not going to happen, and then our value on the first position will still be minus 5. We don't want that. We can do two things. One, it's clear the value, but if we clear the value, we will have deleted the 45, the blah 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 blah. But still, the first value, it's not going to be 5. It's going to be the second value, 5. So we need to reduce this in 1, right? So in this case, we move all the values. We start the first value with 5, and we keep doing these increments from the 5 table until we reach 50. So this exercise of the mental model help us being aware of that what we were doing or that what we were going to do was wrong. And you can think of this like, hey, maybe we could run it, we could debug it, we could check, and we could say, hey, that was not what we were expecting. Yes, but again, at these times, having the advantage or the possibility of running the code many, many times is a privilege. Yeah, it's a privilege because not all the times we will have the possibility of run the code before expecting to be good. Running code that works at the first time, it's a super ability. Do it by using the mental model, by using the knowledge of your language. Again, I'm not talking about just JavaScript. This part, it's focused for programming at all. And another thing that we are missing, it's that if I check the e value, it's in -1. We have to reset it to be 10, right? And now we can run this code. And now, well, we have a problem here. This is 1 -1, it's 0. 1. Why? Oh, okay. Let me do another thing before running this. Same, we resetted this to 10. We need to reset it. My JavaScript valuable to, well, here. Yeah, I know what we were doing. Well, here's the array just as we wanted. The thing I forgot to do, it's do the mental model. Same with the console log, because if we added an increment here, we needed to add an increment here, right? Well, a decrement, sorry. So now we reset it, the value to 110, so we can run this again. And now, yeah, it's on the console log, the 5, 10, 15, blah, 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 until 50. What happened, again, it's that, but I showed you that the value indeed was the correct one. So, what are we doing here today, Bishek Nabagan? We are exploring the JavaScript universe. We are learning the beautifuls of this world. So, being said that, I talked to you about the origins of the language, why I think it's great. I show you why it's great. I show you the primitive values, which is like the fundamentals. Many, probably again, many of the current JavaScript developers don't know what it is. I share with you many resources that I found useful. We talk about the um, the mental model we create, and being not a fun fact, but I think I would like to say, it's that if you put attention here, you maybe recall that I use this convention for naming my variable. That is, how to say it, Pascal case, I think. Huh? I don't remember now. Different types of cases. Pascal, example of Pascal case. Well, This is not a rule. If you call it different, the code will work. For example, I can write let my JavaScript value equal 10. I can write let my JavaScript value equal 11. I can say let my JavaScript value equal 12. Let water my JavaScript value equal 13. I think this one has an error. Yeah. Well, this one doesn't count. Well, what I mean here is that probably in Python you're familiar with this, that it's the snake case. Um, Images. Let's see if that explains. For example, the kebab case it's not supported for JavaScript because we cannot use this symbol in function name, in variables name. Well, in every name we need to declare, even function, a variable, etc. This is, for example, for HTML. In HTML, the kebab case, it's like the standard. If you do CSS, exactly the same. The correct way to name things that, for example, are two words together are in kebab case. The snake case works perfectly for Python. It's a standard. It's very commonly, very frequently used. The Pascal case and the camel case are really, really similar. The only difference being that camel case it starts with lowercase and Pascal case it starts with uppercase. Naming in JavaScript tends, for example, um, the most common thing it's camel case, but in some cases, Pascal case, I mean, starting with uppercase, the first letter, it's common for for example in TypeScript I use them for declaring the schemas, right? What I mean it's that it's a common thing too, but mostly the camel case and completely uppercase. For example, when you do const, if you do const, you probably heard of this uppercase variable, right? So that's completely fine. Equal true. Um, and another thing that works here, the explanation, it's that, for example, this and the one we had before, well, now it I write it differently, but now this and the one we had before are equal, right? The only thing that changes it's the first letter. That means this is case sensitive. It doesn't matter if the words are the same. If one it's right with an uppercase and the other one it's right with lowercase, that means for JavaScript there are different, completely different values, right? Um, so that's all. I wanted to wrap up the session with the summary of what we checked. Um, again, we checked great resources, we checked the history of JavaScript, we checked primitive values, we checked some values declaration. And talking about values declaration, I forgot I mentioned about this naming convention, that it's camel case most of the time. What else? And well, we talked about the mental model. Yeah, that it's super important, and I think the most important thing about this session, even though it is not completely JavaScript, the thing of having this mental model helps you for all your activities as programmers. And well, this specific mental model that we are building together for the JavaScript universe will help you very well, a lot, a lot. And so that's it. I will see you tomorrow for the part 2 of these JavaScript universe sessions. 9 hours until the next one, right? Yeah, exactly. So take a great nap. Don't worry if you can. Well, if you miss it, I know there are huge time differences for many of yours. For example, it's 11 p.m. for me, so I'm going to sleep and wake up for the next session. But again, don't worry if you miss it. You all can always watch the recording on Twitch and YouTube, and well, just watch the recording. That will be all. Thank you here for joining me. Hope to see you tomorrow. And if you can, don't worry. The bear case that you can leave your questions right here in the comments. So this far, any question? I hope it though. Let me stop sharing my screen. And well, thank you, thank you. Bye, Sky. Okay. Well, so see you tomorrow. It's been a blast. See you. Bye bye.